The call came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was reviewing quarterly reports, my coffee still steaming beside me. I barely had time to process the caller's clipped, no-nonsense tone before the words hit me. "Is this Emma Hayes?" "Yes, this is she," I replied, shuffling the reports on my desk to buy a second of clarity. I didn't recognize the number. "This is Bethany from Meridian Savings Bank," she continued, the mechanical clatter of a keyboard echoing through the line. "I'm calling regarding the overdue payments on your lake house loan." I nearly dropped my mug. "There's some mistake," I said, trying to keep my tone professional despite the sudden ice in my veins. "I don't have any loans with Meridian Savings." Bethany paused, then her tone took on a practiced patience. "Our records show a $380,000 mortgage taken out against the property at 1620 Lakeshore Drive. You're 3 months behind and the balance overdue is $14,500. I gripped the edge of my desk, my pulse thundering in my ears. Lakeshore Drive, my lake house, my sanctuary bought with my own hard-earned savings and a decade of relentless work in tech. It was mine, free and clear. I had paid for it outright last year, celebrating the milestone with a quiet weekend alone by the water, no strings attached. "I own that house outright," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "There must be a mistake." Bethany hesitated, the sound of pages flipping on her end. "I have the documents here, Ms. Hayes. The loan was taken out 4 months ago. It has your signature and lists your parents, Philip and Clara Hayes, as co-signers." My heart skipped a beat. My parents. That made even less sense. I hadn't relied on them financially since my freshman year of college. I pulled myself through every internship, climbed the corporate ladder without a safety net. I never once asked them for a dime. "Send me everything," I managed to choke out, scribbling down the email address Bethany provided. "I'll review the documents immediately." As I hung up, the numbness gave way to a slow, simmering rage. My parents. Co-signers. How could they even— My laptop chimed, the PDF files landing in my inbox. I opened the first one, my eyes locking onto my own signature at the bottom of a loan agreement I had never seen before. The signature was flawless, perfect, except it wasn't mine. I clicked through the pages, my pulse a relentless drumbeat in my ears. My parents' names were listed clearly, their signatures scrawled beside the forged version of my own. Panic twisted in my gut. I had no idea they'd even visited the lake house, much less that they felt entitled to use it as collateral. A second later, my phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Dinner tonight, 7 p.m. sharp. Family matters to discuss. Don't be late." I stared at the message, the gall of it sending a fresh wave of anger through me. Not a hint of remorse, not a single clue that I might have discovered their betrayal. It felt like a slap in the face, the kind that stings long after the hand is gone. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door, my mind already racing ahead to the confrontation that awaited. They had no idea what was coming. As I pulled into my parents' driveway that evening, their freshly painted colonial loomed like a monument to their carefully curated image. The yard was perfectly manicured, every blade of grass meticulously trimmed. It hit me then just how much of my parents' life was about appearances, about maintaining a facade of success and stability. My mother met me at the door, her eyes bright but with that sharp edge I had learned to recognize as a child. "Emma, darling." She leaned in for an air kiss, the scent of her expensive perfume making my stomach turn. "You look stressed. Work getting to you." I forced a smile. "You could say that." She ushered me into the dining room where my father was already seated at the head of the table, his posture straight, hands folded neatly in front of him like a king awaiting his court. His silver hair gleamed under the chandelier, his smile broad but lacking warmth. "Emma," he boomed, gesturing to the seat directly across from him. Sit. We have much to discuss." I took my seat, my hands folding into tight fists beneath the polished oak table. I had spent years learning how to keep my composure, how to hold my own in rooms full of powerful, often ruthless executives. Tonight would be no different, though the stakes felt infinitely higher. My father poured wine into my glass, the red liquid catching the light like a warning flare. "To family," he said, raising his own glass. I forced my lips into a thin smile, clinking my glass against his. "To family." As the glass touched mine, I felt the first spark of something that felt suspiciously like resolve. They had crossed a line, and they were about to find out just how big a mistake that was. The tension in the dining room felt like a taut wire ready to snap. My mother placed the last of the silverware with practiced precision, each piece perfectly aligned, her lips pulled into that tight, performative smile. My father leaned back, swirling his wine with a confidence that made my stomach turn. "So," he said, eyes glinting over his glass, Your mother and I have been talking about our retirement plans. I took a slow sip of wine, my pulse still racing from the earlier phone call. Is that so? Yes, my mother chimed in, her voice smooth, but with an edge I'd grown to recognize over the years. We've hit a few financial bumps and we thought it might be time to well consolidate our assets. I almost choked on my drink. Consolidate our assets. Was that their way of admitting to forging my signature on a six-figure mortgage? What does that have to do with me? I asked, setting my glass down with a little too much force, the faint clink echoing in the silent room. My father's eyes narrowed, his jaw tightening for a split second before his polished mask slipped back into place. We were thinking of selling the lake house. The words hung in the air, sharp as broken glass. I forced myself to breathe, gripping my wine glass like it was the only thing tethering me to reality. I leaned back, matching his gaze. The lake house that I own outright. My mother's smile faltered, her fingers tightening around the edge of her linen napkin. My father's eyes flicked to her, a silent exchange passing between them. Emma, don't be so dramatic, he said, his tone patronizing. We're your parents. We've always supported you. It's only fair that you support us in return. I felt a hot surge of anger. Support? I had worked every summer through college, taken every unpaid internship, climbed the ranks without a single handout from them. Now they wanted to cash in on my hard work. I took a deep breath, willing my hands to stop shaking. Let me get this straight. You forged my signature, used my house as collateral for a loan, and now you want me to just roll over and sell it to bail you out? My mother's mask cracked, her carefully painted smile slipping into something closer to panic. My father's grip on his wine glass tightened until his knuckles went white. We didn't forge anything. My mother snapped, her eyes flashing. You're overreacting. Am I shot back, my voice sharp enough to cut through the tension. Because I just got a call from Meridian Savings about a delinquent loan I never took out. Silence crashed down over the table, heavy and suffocating. My father's jaw twitched, his eyes darting toward the doorway as if he were already plotting his escape. You have no idea what you're talking about, he said, the anger in his voice poorly concealed. Oh, I have a pretty good idea, I countered, leaning forward. I've seen the documents. Perfect forgeries, by the way, but not quite good enough. My mother's face drained of color, her eyes flicking to my father for support. He sat frozen, his mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. Who helped you? I pressed, my heart hammering in my chest. Palmer Erickson. Your old lawyer buddy. Or did you find someone else willing to risk a few years behind bars to help you pull this off? My father's fist slammed down onto the table, the sound ricocheting off the polished walls. My mother flinched, her wine glass tipping precariously. Enough, he hissed, his voice low and dangerous. You have no idea what you're doing, Emma. This is family business. You don't threaten family. I leaned back, forcing a tight, bitter smile. No, you're right. Family doesn't threaten family. They just steal from them. The silence that followed was deafening. I pushed back my chair, the legs scraping loudly against the polished wood floor. I'll see myself out, I said, grabbing my purse. And don't bother inviting me over again. I'm changing the locks. As I stepped into the cool night air, the anger that had been building in my chest felt like it might choke me. I fumbled for my car keys, my hands still shaking. As I pulled out of their driveway, the image of my parents' stunned faces burned into my mind. I realized something that sent a chill down my spine. This was just the beginning. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their faces, the tight, panicked expressions they tried to hide behind forced smiles and empty reassurances. The lies they'd told, the years of quiet betrayal simmering just beneath the surface, finally exposed. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen island, the soft hum of the espresso machine the only sound in my empty house. I sipped my coffee, staring blankly at the rising sun, spilling through the glass doors, the lake outside shrouded in early morning mist. I needed to think, to plan, but my mind felt like a tangled knot of anger and disbelief. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through my emails, finally opening the PDF files Bethany from the bank had sent. I had avoided looking at them last night, hoping a few hours of sleep would somehow make this all feel less real. But now, with the harsh light of morning cutting through the fog outside, I forced myself to confront the evidence. There it was. My name perfectly forged across multiple documents. My parents' signatures beside mine, their names spelled out in confident looping strokes. The loan amount, $380,000, stared back at me, a number that felt like a personal attack, a debt I had never chosen. I zoomed in on the notary stamp. Palmer Erickson. I felt a flash of cold anger. My father's old friend, the one who had been at every family barbecue, every birthday party, the same man who had given me my first piece of legal advice when I was 17, telling me to always read the fine print. Ironic. My phone buzzed, pulling me out of my dark thoughts. Michaela's name flashed on the screen. I hit answer without hesitation. "Hey, got your message," she said, her voice sharp and alert. "What the hell is going on?" I took a deep breath, steadying myself. My parents took out a $380,000 mortgage on my lake house without my knowledge. They forged my signature, Michaela. Silence. Then a low, impressed whistle. "Wow, they really went for it, huh?" "Yeah," I replied, my voice tight. "I just forwarded you the documents. I need you to tell me if these are real." "I'm on it," she said, the sound of rapid typing echoing through the line. "Give me a few minutes." I set my phone down. My fingers still curled tightly around my coffee cup, the ceramic warm against my skin. Minutes felt like hours as I stared at the documents, the carefully forged signatures taunting me from the screen. Finally, Michaela's voice crackled back through the speaker. "Okay, I've skimmed through these. The signatures are good, too." "Good. If I didn't know your handwriting like I do, I'd have thought these were legit. But the notary stamp, that's definitely Palmer's." Of course it was. I felt a fresh wave of anger, the betrayal cutting deeper with every second. "Michaela?" I said slowly. "I want to burn them for this." She chuckled darkly. "Oh, we will. But first, we need to be smart about this. They've clearly planned this out. If they were bold enough to forge your signature, they might have other surprises waiting." I closed my eyes, forcing myself to breathe. "Like what? Like other accounts in your name, maybe credit cards or personal loans? You need to do a full audit of your finances. I can help, but you'll need to grant me access to your accounts." "Done," I replied without hesitation. I heard the rapid clacking of her keyboard as she logged into the secure financial portal I had set up years ago. I could almost picture her in her sleek office, her dark hair pulled back into a no-nonsense ponytail, her fingers flying over the keys. "All right," she said after a few minutes. "I'm seeing the lake house deed here. It's still in your name, thank God, but..." Oh, this isn't good. My stomach dropped. "What?" "They've attached a second line of credit to the property, $50,000. Also taken out 4 months ago." I felt like I had been punched in the gut. "You're kidding." "I wish I was," she replied, her voice hardening. "And guess whose names are on this one too?" "Let me guess," I said, bitterly gripping my coffee cup so tightly I thought it might shatter. "Philip and Clara Hayes." Bingo. I leaned back against the cool marble counter, the early morning chill from the lake seeping in through the open window. This was worse than I had imagined. Not only had they forged my signature for the original mortgage, but they had also doubled down, stacking even more debt onto my property without my knowledge. "What the hell were they thinking?" I muttered, my mind reeling. "I'll tell you what they were thinking," Michaela said, her voice tight with anger. "They thought you'd never find out. They thought you'd keep paying the bills without asking questions, that you'd stay the dutiful daughter while they bled you dry." The thought hit me like a slap. She was right. This wasn't just a single act of betrayal. This was a pattern, a long con they had probably been planning for years, quietly siphoning money from me without my knowledge. "They have no idea who they're dealing with," I whispered, my hands trembling with a mix of rage and adrenaline. Michaela's voice softened, the steel in her tone turning to something closer to encouragement. "Exactly. So let's remind them, shall we?" I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath, the cool air filling my lungs and clearing my head. "All right, what's the first step?" She paused, her voice taking on a tone I hadn't heard from her in years, pure, unfiltered determination. "First, we secure the lake house, change the locks, update the security system, and freeze any further transactions. Then we dig. We find every single account they've opened in your name, every loan, every card. We find it all." I smiled, the first real smile I'd managed since the call from Bethany. Let's burn their little empire to the ground. The next few days felt like a whirlwind. I barely slept, my mind a relentless engine of plans and contingencies, each idea sharpening the blade of my anger. Michaela and I worked together like a well-oiled machine, piecing together the full extent of my parents' betrayal. I had always prided myself on my independence, my ability to weather any storm, but this felt like betrayal on a scale I hadn't thought possible. It wasn't just the money or the house. It was the sheer audacity, the depth of the deception, the way they had smiled in my face while reaching into my pockets behind my back. My phone buzzed as I sat in my home office, papers strewn across the desk like the wreckage of a ship run aground. It was Michaela. "I've got more," she said, her voice tense. "Just sent you the files." I clicked into my email, my heart pounding as the documents loaded. Bank statements, credit reports, account summaries, dozens of pages, each one a fresh cut. They took out a second line of credit on the lake house, she said, her voice low and dangerous. But it doesn't stop there. They've been skimming from your accounts for years. Small withdrawals disguised as routine transfers. Hundreds of them. I felt my grip tighten on my phone, the plastic case creaking under the pressure. How much are we talking? Michaela sighed, a long, tired sound. About $120,000 over the past 6 years. I let out a slow breath, my mind flashing back to all the times my mother had complimented my success, all the times my father had bragged about my career to his golf buddies. I had thought they were proud. I had been wrong. They really thought I'd never notice, I whispered, my voice trembling with a mix of disbelief and fury. Emma. They weren't just hoping you wouldn't notice. They were counting on it. They built their entire plan around the idea that you'd be too busy, too trusting to ever look closely. I closed my eyes, the weight of it all crashing down on me. This wasn't a simple betrayal. It was a campaign, a long-term strategy to bleed me dry while keeping me in the dark. All right, I said, forcing my voice to steady. What's the next move? Michaela's tone sharpened, her professional instincts kicking into high gear. First, we cut them off. No more access to your accounts. I'm setting up a freeze on every line of credit they've touched, every card, every loan. They're about to hit a financial wall, and they're going to hit it hard. I felt a fierce, bitter satisfaction at the thought. Do it. Second, I'm drafting a letter to Meridian Savings. We're going to contest the mortgage dispute, the signatures, and initiate a full audit of their records. If they don't back down, we take them to court. I leaned back in my chair, the leather creaking beneath me. And Palmer. Michaela let out a dark laugh. Oh, I'm already on it. I've got a friend in the State Bar Association. If Palmer's been signing off on fraudulent documents, he's looking at disbarment, maybe even jail time. I smiled, a cold, satisfied smile. Perfect. There was a brief silence on the line, the only sound the hum of my desk lamp. Emma, Michaela said quietly, her voice losing some of its hard edge. I'm sorry. I know how close you were to your parents. This is a lot. I closed my eyes, feeling a sharp, twisting ache in my chest. She was right. As angry as I was, as hurt and betrayed as I felt, there was still that tiny, stubborn part of me that wanted to believe it was all a mistake, that my parents had some desperate, understandable reason for what they had done. But the evidence was clear, the facts undeniable. They had chosen this path. They had chosen to steal from me, to lie to me, to use me. Thanks, Michaela, I said, my voice rough. But I'm done making excuses for them. I hung up the quiet of my office, suddenly oppressive, the shadows stretching long against the walls. I stared at the files on my screen, my parents' signatures leaping out at me from the digital pages. I needed air. I needed space. I grabbed my keys and headed for the lake house, the drive a blur of trees and asphalt as my mind raced. I pulled up to the gravel driveway just as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the water in shades of orange and gold. I stepped out of the car, the cool evening air filling my lungs. The sounds of the lake, rustling leaves, distant bird calls wrapping around me like a long-lost friend. I climbed the steps to the front porch, the wood creaking beneath my feet, and unlocked the door. The familiar scent of cedar and lake water washed over me, the echo of countless summers spent here with friends and family, the memories now tainted by betrayal. I walked through the quiet rooms, my footsteps muffled by thick rugs and polished wood floors. I paused in the living room, my eyes catching on the framed family photo above the stone fireplace. The three of us smiling, arms around each other, the lake sparkling in the background. A perfect moment captured forever in glass and wood. I reached up and took the frame down, my fingers trembling as I held it in my hands. I stared at their faces, the same faces that had smiled and laughed with me at barbecues and holiday dinners, the same faces that had looked me in the eye while quietly, methodically stealing my future. With a sharp, sudden motion, I slammed the frame against the stone mantel, the glass shattering with a satisfying crash, the shards raining down onto the polished floor like pieces of my broken trust. I felt a strange, hollow calm settle over me as I watched the pieces scatter across the floor, tiny reflections of the dying sunlight catching in the cracks. I would rebuild, I would recover, and they would pay for every broken piece. The following week passed in a blur of paperwork, late-night phone calls, and endless cups of coffee. Michaela moved with the ruthless efficiency of a shark in open water, each legal document and bank statement another piece of the puzzle she methodically assembled. Meanwhile, I buried myself in the details of my parents' financial lives, peeling back layers of deceit I hadn't even known existed. They hadn't just dipped into my accounts, they had built an entire shadow economy around my hard work, my success, my sacrifices. Every new piece of evidence felt like a fresh betrayal. Each discovery another brick in the wall I was building between us. I found a second forged mortgage, this one for a vacation property in the mountains. They had taken out a $60,000 line of credit against my name, claiming I was their co-signer. My parents, the people who had raised me, who had watched me struggle through college, who had cheered at my promotions and clinked glasses at my victories, had been quietly siphoning money from me for years. I sat at my kitchen island one evening, a glass of wine untouched beside my laptop, the harsh glow of the screen casting long shadows across the marble countertop. I was staring at the latest set of documents Michaela had uncovered when my phone buzzed, the sudden vibration startling me out of my dark thoughts. It was a message from my mother. "Mom, family dinner this Sunday. We need to talk. Please come." 7 p.m. I stared at the message, my heart, a cold, hard knot in my chest. I could picture her perfectly, her sharp, perfectly manicured nails clacking against her phone screen, her lips pulled into a tight, determined line as she sent the message. They knew. They had to. The financial walls were closing in the slow, creeping realization that their comfortable little scam was crumbling around them. For a moment, I considered ignoring the message, blocking her number, and letting them twist in the wind as their financial empire collapsed. But then I thought of my father's smug grin, his booming, confident voice, the way he had dismissed my concerns the last time I saw them. No, I wasn't going to miss this. Sunday came faster than I expected. I pulled into their driveway just before 7. The late summer sun dipping below the trees, casting long, flickering shadows across the perfectly manicured lawn. My parents' house looked exactly as it always had, pristine, polished, a monument to carefully curated appearances. My mother opened the door before I even reached the front steps, her face a carefully arranged mask of warmth and concern. "Emma, darling," she cooed, leaning in for an air kiss that I sidestepped. Her eyes narrowed slightly, the first crack in her perfect facade. "Mom," I said coolly, stepping past her into the foyer. The house smelled like roast beef and red wine, the same scent that had marked every major family gathering of my childhood. The familiarity of it made my stomach turn. My father was already seated at the head of the dining room table, his expression carefully blank, his hands folded neatly in front of him. He looked up as I entered, his eyes locking onto mine for a brief, tense moment before flicking away. "Emma," he said, his voice a little too loud, a little too forced. "Glad you could make it." I forced a tight smile, settling into the seat directly across from him. My mother took her place beside him, her spine ramrod straight, her eyes darting nervously between us. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice too bright, too brittle. "We have a lot to discuss." I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms over my chest. "I'm sure we do." For a long, uncomfortable moment, the only sound was the clinking of silverware as my mother fussed with the serving dishes, her hands trembling slightly as she arranged the plates and glasses. My father cleared his throat, the sound sharp and jarring in the tense silence. "Emma," he said, his voice slipping into the same authoritative tone he used when delivering bad news to his underlings at work. "We've been looking over our finances and we realized, well, we've made some mistakes." I raised an eyebrow, struggling to keep my expression neutral. "Mistakes?" My mother's hand froze on the edge of the salad bowl, her knuckles white against the polished silver. "Yes," my father continued, his voice tight. "We took out some loans, investments really, and well, they haven't panned out the way we'd hoped." I felt a bitter laugh rise in my throat, the sound sharp and harsh like glass shattering on tile. "Investments?" I repeated, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "You mean the mortgages you forged my name on, the lines of credit you opened without my consent?" My father's jaw tightened, his carefully constructed mask slipping for just a moment, his eyes flashing with something that looked like panic. "Emma, please," my mother cut in, her voice tight with barely concealed desperation. "We're family. We've always been there for you. We thought you'd understand." I felt a fresh wave of anger, the heat of it flushing my cheeks, making my heart race. "Understand," I shot back, my voice rising. "You stole from me. You forged my signature. You lied to my face for years. You don't get to play the family card now." My father's hands clenched into fists, the muscles in his jaw working furiously as he struggled to keep his composure. "Emma," he said, his voice shaking with barely suppressed rage, "you have no idea what you're talking about." I leaned forward, my hands flat on the polished wood of the dining table, my eyes locking onto his with a fierce, unblinking intensity. "Oh, I think I do. And you're going to pay for every cent, every lie, every betrayal." Silence crashed down over the room, heavy and suffocating. My mother's breath hitched, her eyes filling with tears, her carefully constructed facade finally cracking. I stood my chair, scraping loudly against the hardwood floor, the sound echoing through the stillness. "Enjoy your dinner," I said, turning on my heel and striding toward the door. "It might be the last one you can afford." I stepped out into the cool night air, the door slamming shut behind me, the sound like a gunshot in the quiet, tree-lined street. As I climbed into my car, my heart still racing, my hands shaking with a mix of rage and adrenaline, I realized something that sent a sharp, bitter thrill through me. I had just declared war. The days that followed felt like the slow, steady tightening of a noose. Michaela and I moved with quiet, methodical precision, each step carefully calculated, each decision. A small, deliberate strike against the carefully constructed facade my parents had built around themselves. I filed the paperwork to challenge the fraudulent mortgages, disputing the forged signatures, and demanding a full audit of every account they had ever touched. Michaela's legal contacts pulled strings, pushing the investigations into high gear. Meanwhile, I dug deeper, peeling back the layers of my parents' financial lives. Like old wallpaper, each new revelation another crack in the foundation of their once proud empire. I discovered credit cards in my name, personal loans I had never applied for, even a luxury car lease I hadn't signed. It was like they had been slowly bleeding me dry for years. 1,000 tiny cuts disguised as birthday gifts, family vacations, and emergency expenses. I felt the anger simmering just beneath the surface, a slow, steady burn that fueled my every action. I wasn't just fighting for my house, for my money. I was fighting for my dignity, for the years of trust and loyalty they had stolen from me. The first real blow landed on a rainy Thursday morning. I was sitting at my kitchen table, my laptop open to a series of spreadsheets detailing the full extent of my parents' financial crimes when my phone buzzed. It was Michaela. "Turn on the news," she said, her voice tight with barely contained excitement. I grabbed the remote and flicked on the TV, the screen flickering to life just as the local news anchor launched into a breaking story. Longtime community members Philip and Clara Hayes are facing allegations of financial fraud and forgery. The anchor announced, his voice carefully neutral but tinged with the faintest hint of scandal. Sources close to the investigation confirmed that the couple is accused of forging their daughter's signature on multiple mortgages and lines of credit, potentially totaling over $500,000. The camera cut to a shot of my parents' house, the front lawn dotted with news vans, their polished facade crumbling under the harsh glare of the cameras. I leaned back, a slow, satisfied smile spreading across my face. Emma, Michaela's voice crackled through the phone. "You still there?" I laughed, the sound sharp and bitter, a release of months of tension. "Oh, I'm here. I'm definitely here." The fallout was immediate and brutal. My parents' carefully cultivated social circle turned on them in a matter of hours. Their country club memberships revoked, their once loyal friends distancing themselves with the speed of a sinking ship's rats. The next morning, I woke to a series of frantic, pleading messages from my mother. "Mom. Emma, please, we need to talk. This is all a misunderstanding. We can fix this. We're family. Mom. Please call me. Your father is beside himself. We can work this out. Mom. Emma, please. You're tearing this family apart." I deleted each message without a second thought, the bitter satisfaction of my small private victory warming me against the chill of the early morning air. That afternoon, I got a call from Palmer Erickson. I let it go to voicemail, his clipped, panicked voice crackling through my speakers as I listened from my kitchen. "Emma, it's Palmer. Listen, we need to talk." I had no idea. I swear I thought this was all above board. "Please just give me a chance to explain." I snorted, the sound echoing off the polished marble countertops. Palmer had always been a snake, his smooth, practiced charm a thin veneer over a core of cold, calculating ambition. He had known exactly what he was doing, and now he was paying the price. I watched the news that evening. The same anchor from the day before, standing in front of my parents' house. The camera catching the frantic movements of my father as he stormed across the front lawn, shouting at a group of reporters. My mother appeared in the doorway behind him, her carefully styled hair now a tangled mess, her perfectly painted smile replaced with a tight, panicked grimace. "Family doesn't do this to each other," my father bellowed. His face flushed, his fists clenched at his sides. "Emma, if you're watching this, you have no idea what you've done." I felt a strange, detached calm settle over me as I watched him rage against the cameras, his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. Oh, I knew exactly what I had done. The final blow came a week later in the form of a thick envelope delivered to my parents' front door. I had taken great satisfaction in hand-delivering it, the weight of the documents inside a tangible representation of every stolen dollar, every forged signature, every lie. Inside were the official foreclosure notices for the lake house and the mountain property, along with a full audit of every account they had ever touched in my name. They had built their lives on a foundation of lies and stolen money, and now that foundation was collapsing beneath them, the weight of their greed dragging them down into the financial abyss. As I stood on their front porch, my parents' panicked, disbelieving faces staring back at me through the frosted glass of the front door, I felt a strange, exhilarating rush of freedom. I had won. I had taken back what was mine. I turned and walked down the steps, the gravel crunching beneath my feet, the cool autumn air filling my lungs as I climbed into my car and pulled away. As I drove down the long, tree-lined street, the shadows of the setting sun stretching long and thin across the pavement, I felt the last threads of my old life falling away, the weight of years of betrayal and disappointment finally lifting from my shoulders. I had burned it all down and now finally I was free. Story 2. My credit score was burning as I stood in the shadows of the huge ballroom, watching my sister spin around in her $10,000 wedding gown. Her laughter reverberated off the marble floors of the apartment where she had persuaded me to co-sign her loan 3 months prior, and the crystal chandeliers captured every glimmer of her tiara. Identifying myself as Zlata, I am the responsible sister, the dull one, the one who consistently delivers in times of need. I'm also the one with a ticking time bomb in my hand tonight, posing as a loan agreement. Zlata, why don't you dance my love, Mom? There was that usual ring of disdain in Elena's voice. She said that Sierra and her new husband, Eric, were engrossed in their own world on the packed dance floor. The payment of the merchants must be insured by someone. I tapped my tablet in response. Unless you want to be in charge of the last payments. She adjusted her fashionable scarf and wrinkled her nose. You're skilled at that, my darling Numbers. Our creative spirit has always been Sierra. After 27 years of digesting the reaction, I bet back. Instead, grinning, I opened the loan agreement on my computer and verified for the umpteenth time that the phrase was still present, buried like a landmine in the tiny print. Do you recall the first time she showed us the location, mistaking my stillness for nostalgia? My mother went on. It has to be here, she knew. Well worth the money. Each and every dime. Exactly 50,000 of them. I also recalled that day, but in a different way. Lada, please. With mascara streaming down her cheeks, Sierra had shed tears. Without a co-signer, the bank will not approve us. The only person with adequate credit is you. The reason for this is that I do pay my expenses. It's what family does, I had said. Without raising his eyes from his newspaper, our father had added his voice from his recliner. Wouldn't your sister do the same for you? I nearly burst out laughing at it. The only person Sierra had ever done anything for was herself. I promised to make all of the payments. Sierra, holding my hands, had made a vow. Eric's startup will be loaded and ready to take flight. Please, please, please. I saw Sierra grin as Eric whispered something in her ear. He winked at me across the room as he lifted his champagne glass. I lifted mine, wondering if he was yet aware of the clause. I was curious as to whether either of them had read the documents before signing them. Beside me, Mrs. Foster, a wedding coordinator, appeared. The photographer wants to know if the terrace sunset photographs are still being taken. We certainly are. Sierra showed up and grabbed Eric's hand. Slider. These two include you. You must. All of this is possible because of you. I allowed myself to be dragged outdoors if she only realized how true that was. When Sierra posed against the balustrade, the sun was sinking and everything turned gold, including her flawless face. The photographer positioned us like dolls once our parents joined us. The contented family, the ideal wedding, the American dream. Closer to one another, the photographer gave a call. Huge grins. It's a party. I grinned as I reflected on the email I had gotten from my lawyer buddy Genesis earlier that day. She wrote it with bulletproof accuracy. As soon as they fail to make a payment, the clause takes effect. If they depart the nation without arranging a payment schedule. The original sponsors are now again held liable. They signed it for you to remember your parents. I recalled all of the signatures, the tearful manipulations, and the guilt trips that had brought me to this point. Another. Everyone said happy ever after when the photographer called. Sierra embraced me with her arms. She had champagne on her breath. You have my undying affection, sis. You are the greatest of all. Eric's expression was suddenly serious as he checked his phone over her shoulder before putting it back in his pocket. I had saw him purchase 2 one-way tickets to a nation without an extradition treaty 3 weeks prior. I knew. And he didn't. That evening, I opened my laptop one last time in my hotel room. Sierra's sloppy handwriting was visible at the bottom of the loan agreement, which illuminated on the screen. My parents' hurried scrawls, Eric's assured cut, and my own meticulous printing. Below them all, the clause waited like a coiled serpent. I lightly touched the screen. Now, let's see who pays. Sierra texted me and my phone chimed. Thank you for everything. No one could ask for a better sister than you. Love you forever. I didn't respond. Instead, I closed my laptop and got myself a drink. The true wedding present was still coming, and I wanted to be very, very patient as I waited to deliver it. 6 months after the wedding, I sat at my favorite coffee shop glancing at my phone's call log. 32 calls were made to Sierra, 48 unanswered text messages, and 16 to Eric. 3 weeks have passed since the first loan payment was due. Once more, you're obsessed, Genesis stated as he handed 2 new lattes into the seat across from me. You checked Instagram how many times today? I grabbed my phone, launched the app, and rotated it to face her. Sierra's most recent photo featured her and Eric sipping cocktails on an exotic beach. It said in the caption, "Debt-free and tied by destiny, we are living our finest lives. Shakira, God bless you. Give it a shake. Fresh life. No regrets. Genesis." The table was drummed by immaculately groomed nails. You anticipated this. It doesn't hurt any less knowing. I go to my messages. Take a look at what my mom emailed me this morning. It read, "Once more the bank phoned. Please take care of this later. When your father is under stress, do you know how his blood pressure rises? Have you explained the clause to them yet?" Genesis inquired. Not quite yet. I am awaiting my telephone. I'm buzzing. Sierra left a voicemail. I switched it to speaker mode. Hello, sister. I apologize for being so difficult to contact. This place has terrible Wi-Fi. Pay attention to the payment notices you keep sending. You'll figure it out, I'm sure. You always do. You're really skilled with money matters. In any case, I adore you. Don't exert too much effort. Genesis, his gaze expanded. The boldness. Await it. I raised a finger as I spoke. The message went on. Oh, and would you mind cutting back on your phone calls? Eric claims that it's depressing our vibe and is somewhat desperate. Regards, kisses. As Genesis muttered something unprintable, I erased the message. Are you certain you wish to proceed with this? She inquired. You're secure legally. Ethically, allow them to drown. They're not going to drown. Pulling up my email, I said, making sure everyone gets wet is the goal. Once more my phone buzzed. Mom, give me a call, Zlata. The bank is being really demanding. I wrote a sample email for the lending agency which I showed Genesis. The contract with the highlighted section and documentation of Sierra and Eric's departure from the nation were attached. Genesis said firmly, send it. Give up tormenting yourself. My finger lingered above the submit button as I hesitated. You will at last be free when I do this and you complete this. Genesis grabbed my hand as he stretched across the table. Do you recall how they handled your father's medical bills? They took out a loan for Sierra's art school. The deposit for her first vehicle. My phone lighted up with another Instagram notice. Sierra had posted again. Some folks just can't bear seeing others living their goals. Consume our poisonous family limits. God bless you. I sent it. Completed. I said, feeling strangely empty. We're waiting now. In order to karma, to contracts. Genesis held up her coffee cup. I clinked my cup against hers and corrected her. My phone called when I was sitting in my apartment that evening, taking in the sunset outside my window. Stefan was the one. My former partner. Sierra's posts caught my attention. Without preamble, he said, Are you all right? Are you? Why wouldn't I be? I spoke in a neutral tone. Stefan had witnessed me spend all of my cash for my father's heart surgery while Sierra took an impromptu trip to Europe, and he had been there throughout the medical bills crisis. Because he added quietly, You always look out for everyone, and nobody ever looks after you. The email I had sent regarding the provision that would shortly explode in my parents' lap came to mind. That is evolving. Good, he said. Time is of the essence. I checked my email on my laptop after we hung up. The lending organization has already replied. We have received your documents pertaining to the liability reassignment provision, Mrs. Lotta. After reviewing, our legal team will take appropriate action. Within 48 hours, expect to hear from someone. My phone gave me one last buzz. Eric texted. Very pleasant. Lotta. Sierra is in tears. I hope you're content. I returned the type. The fine print should have been read by you. I then blocked their 2 numbers. I poured myself a glass of wine and opened the folder that included all of the receipts, transfers, and financial records I had provided my family over the years. Instead, I could have purchased a home with the entire amount. I was waiting for the hammer to fall on those who had long taken me for granted, and it had bought me this moment. I kept thinking about what my mother had said. Family is what it is. I grinned into my glass of wine. Indeed, Mom. That's precisely what families do. The clause's drafting memory was still quite vivid. 3 months before to the wedding, I had taken a seat in Genesis's living room, surrounded by legal paperwork and takeaway cartons, while she put me on speakerphone with her friend who is a lawyer. Ironclad is what you wanted. Something had been said by the lawyer. They are unable to escape. My wine glass had been topped off by Genesis. Remind him of the medical bills. I had said $28,000. Sierra needed a trip to discover who she was, so I lost all of my savings. The college fund and dad's surgery were both required in the same month. The prompt came from Genesis, borrowed, never came back. It seems that Sierra's desire to attend art school took precedence over my MBA. The attorney had hummed introspectively. This is something we can work with. Making it appear harmless enough for them to sign without question is crucial, but detailed enough to have legal force behind it. As I sit at my desk at work, I pulled up the final version we had created that states that in the event of default, all liability passes to the original co-signing sponsors who accept full responsibility for the remaining balance should the primary borrower depart the country without establishing a payment plan. Easy, tidy, tragic. The phone rang in my workplace. It was the latter who spoke. The provision is in effect. Genesis was the one. I just received word from legal. We are reaching out to your parents today. I looked at my email. It turned out that the lending agency had left a message. Liability has been transferred to Elena and Wilfred in accordance with Section 7.3 of the agreement. Initial contact will be made within 24 hours. How long do you think until Genesis started? My cell phone lit up with my mother's number. Gotta go. I said it's starting. I let it ring 4 times before responding. Hello, Mama. What is this? Her voice sounded harsh. These individuals are stating we owe $50,000. This must be a mistake. No error. Examine your email. A copy of the contract you signed was forwarded to you. However, I heard rustling papers. We didn't. We signed as witnesses alone. Go over Section 7.3, calmly I said. There's more rustling than quiet. You deceived us, she said. No, Mom. The finest taught me. Do you recall what you told me family is what it is? Your father will have normal blood pressure. It was all right when I covered the cost of his procedure. Sierra was sharing selfies from Paris at the time. That was not the same. She had to discover who she was. Yes, I do recall. You now have to locate $50,000. She broke down in tears. I used to be devastated by the sound. It used to make me rush to solve whatever issue she was having. All it did now was wear me out. Between sobbing, she replied, "We'll give Sierra a call." This will be rectified by her. I chuckled. I wish you luck in your endeavor. Her phone disconnected. Lotta, this is useless. This isn't how you are. This is me, actually. The really me. The person who has finished serving as everyone's ATM. Her labored breathing was the only sound in the line. At last, she whispered something. What are you looking for? I want the debt you agreed to pay off. I want repercussions for you. For once, I want you to experience what it's like to be in charge. We are your parents. Indeed. I also learned what I know about family loyalty from you. I ended the call and switched off my phone via the window of my workplace. People were hurrying about their days, coping with their own tragedies and betrayals, while I could see the city stretching out below. I received a fresh email from Sierra on my PC. A new address was used to send it. You're a domineering bitch. You're always hoping to win. Are you happy now? Mom is going crazy? It's all your fault that Dad's chest hurts. I should never have put my trust in you. To me, you're dead. With just 3 words, I sent it to Genesis. Well worth the money. She answered right away. Your sister is going to discover that Venmo is taken by karma. I took out an old picture from my bottom drawer, the last time we had gone on a family vacation. As usual, Sierra is in the center. Our folks are grinning at her. I'm on edge. Taking out the checkbook, settling the hotel bill. The door to my office opened. My junior associate appeared anxious. Please do me a favor, Mrs. Lauder. Could you sign the Miller account as a co-signer? This is only a formality. I glanced at the picture, then back at him. No, I said, I no longer co-sign anything. Startled by my candor, he blinked. However, it's only ordinary practice. Paying your own expenses is also important. As I turned back to my computer, I said, first try that. I grabbed up my phone and switched it back on as he was leaving. I missed 12 of my parents' calls. Sierra sent 5 new emails. One passage from Genesis. What is the sensation? Like a free bird, I typed back. There was no delay on the part of the collecting agency. My mother unexpectedly arrived at my workplace 3 days after the clause was activated, mascara running down her cheeks. She sank into the chair across from my desk and muttered, "They're threatening to put a lid on our house." Later, your childhood home. I didn't look up as I continued typing. You refinanced the house to cover Sierra's art school expenses, the house where I grew up. That was not the same. I didn't have potential. She did. At last, I looked her in the eyes. Did you steal my college funds for that reason? With weakness, she said, we borrowed it. To borrow is to return. I opened a previous spreadsheet. Do you want to view the precise amount plus interest? The phone in my office buzzed. Your 2 p.m. Mrs. Lauder is present. Give them 5 minutes. I looked back to my mom. In actuality, the collecting agency is acting rather sensibly. Payment arrangements for $50,000 are accepted. She used a handkerchief with a monogram to dab at her eyes. Most likely one of Sierra's costly presents that was purchased with cash from someone else. Your dad has trouble sleeping. Like I did when he required surgery, he is always looking through our accounts for money that isn't there. She winced. Years have passed since then. Why do you continue to cling on to that? Because someone needs to keep in mind. The receipts must be kept by someone. A text message from Sierra appeared on my phone. Mom is sobbing once more because of you. What a domineering bitch you are. You're constantly hoping to win. Are you happy now? I showed my mom the message. She sends her best wishes from your ideal daughter. She's afraid. She's young, according to my mom. Her age is 27. I paid my father's medical bills when I was 24. You're stronger, though. These things are manageable for you. Leaning back in my chair, I allowed her words to linger. That's intriguing. Mom, tell me more about how I get strong when I am taken advantage of. Her chair scraped the floor as she abruptly stood up. You weren't brought up to be this mean by me. I was not raised by you. You were too preoccupied to help Sierra. Everything will be lost, she muttered. No. What you risk when you sign that contract will be lost. There is a distinction. What are you looking for from us? At last I grinned. I want you to suffer the repercussions. Only once. I want you to experience what it's like to be abandoned. Once more my phone buzzed. Sierra made a video call. I placed it on speaker and responded. You wicked sorceress. Anger was flushing Sierra's cheeks. Mom phoned me crying just now. You did this to me, but how could you do this to them? I calmly responded. But instead of crying, I utilized a contract. We are related. That's right. And remember, this is what family does. Eric was pacing behind Sierra, chatting quickly on his phone. He seemed anxious. Having issues with your visa? I asked naively. Sierra's gaze expanded. How did you... When your credit score plummets and you get an international debt notice with your name on it, it's incredible what occurs. My mom let out a gasp. You didn't. I stated I didn't do anything. There are repercussions for actions. Mother, isn't that what you've always told me? Just before asking me to correct Sierra's blunders once more. Sierra wrinkled her face. They intend to cancel our visas. Eric's commercial transactions are failing. You did not build anything here that we did. I interrupted. Like you usually do, you fled from responsibilities and obligation. The only difference is that nobody is there to clean up your trash this time. Women. My mom begged, if you only pay Lada, we can repair this. No, I got to my feet. My 2 p.m. is ready. Both of you are aware of the door's location. Please, Sierra cried. My parents are them, and I am your sister. It's funny that only when you need something does that matter. I hung up the phone and faced my mom. The letter they provided you has the number of the collection agency. Before they call you again, I advise you to give them a call. She turned around after walking to the door. One day when you need your family, you'll regret this. I responded, I've needed my family a lot. You were where I sat in my quiet office with trembling hands after she departed. Genesis texted me and my phone chimed. Tonight, any drinks, it appears that you require them. Bring wine and the contract, I texted back. I'd want to frame it. I received another text message, this one from my dad. We assumed you wouldn't follow through on it. I answered in a single sentence. You've always had that issue. I then put my desk in order, switched off my phone, and called in my 2 p.m. I had real job to do after all. Bills are not self-paying. Ask my relatives. My mother came up with the notion of the compulsory family meal. Sunday meal. On the phone, she had added, like old times, with a fake sweetness in her voice. We must talk about this like grown-ups. My parents were already sitting at their dining room table when I got there precisely on schedule. A smorgasbord of the foods I loved most as a kid, arranged like emotional weapons. My mother remarked, Your father made your favorite lasagna, and she gave me a heaping helping. Do you recall helping him in the kitchen? I recall preparing the lasagna and then paying for his hot medicine. I put down my fork and answered, Let's get straight to the topic and avoid the nostalgia. My dad cleared his throat. It is the bank's insistence. When it comes to money, banks are usually that way. We have examined our choices, my mom interrupted. The vacation property might be sold, the one I should have inherited. I chuckled. For Sierra's wedding, you remortgaged it. You're not fair, my father said. I took a folder out and set it down on the table. Let's discuss the food. A spreadsheet was within. Each dollar I had given them over the years was painstakingly recorded, complete with dates and justifications. First page, Dad has $28,000 in medical costs. The second page, my college fund contributed $40,000 for Sierra's art school tuition. Page 3, Sierra had to put down $12,000 for her first vehicle. Shall I go on? My mom shoved the folder out of her way. Dwelling on the past is not why we are here. The collection agency is drowning you in coals, which is why you're here. You were reared by us. We gave you everything according to my father. Sierra got everything from you. Everything I own is something I earned. It buzzed on my phone. A passage from Genesis. What is the status of the ambush? My mother reached across the table and took my hand before I could reply. Please, darling. Together we can resolve this for the family. The household. I withdrew my hand. When I worked 2 jobs to pay for my dad's operation, where was this familial concern? Sierra shared pictures from Europe on Instagram. She was discovering who she was, and now she's lost herself abroad using $50,000 of my money. My dad got up. His face read abruptly. We believed that the contract would not be enforced. We assumed you would realize it was acceptable to exploit me once again. That family looks out for one another. My mom stepped in. I pushed my untouched plate aside and got to my feet. It's funny that protection only works in one direction. We're going to lose the house, my father said. After that, sell the vacation home. However, you were intended to inherit that. My mom objected. My bequest. I opened Sierra's most recent Instagram post on my mobile device. Last year, she and Eric were on the beach at the same vacation house. Like last year, when I was supposed to inherit it. Before you give them free rent, let them remain there. My parents looked at each other guiltily. You were aware? With a sudden revelation, I said. You were aware that they intended to depart the nation. My mother's lack of response was sufficient. You assist them in organizing it. I went on. You assumed I would just, as I've paid off everything else, pay off their loan. With weakness, my father remarked, You're stronger than Sierra. These things are manageable for you. No more. I reached for my handbag. Give the collection agency a call. Decide on a payment schedule. Whatever you need to sell, sell it. I finished taking care of everything. Please, Slaughter. I was called after by my mother. What are people going to think? At the door, I turned. They will believe that you are finally being held accountable. What is the sensation outside? I spent a long time sitting in my car, trembling hands on the driving wheel. An unknown number texted me, making my phone vibrate. Eric, you received a brief notice on the visa difficulties when you used a new phone. Adorable. However, you overlooked something. I have some knowledge about your business. Things that could harm your professional life. Do you want to change your mind? With 3 words, I sent the message to Genesis. It's time for the second stage. She responded right away. We should bury them at home. I poured a glass of wine for myself and opened the insurance folder on my laptop. Every dubious email that Sierra and Eric exchanged on their intentions to fail on the loan was copied to me. Every discussion on leaving the country, as well as every piece of proof demonstrating my parents' awareness and cooperation. I wrote a fresh email to the fraud department of the lending company. I have knowledge on a debt default that was planned. My phone rang. Once more, my mom. I pressed submit on the email and turned down the call. I would occasionally whisper to my empty flat. The final family meal is the greatest. The anonymous tip detonated in less than 24 hours. Genesis stormed into my office when I was seated at my desk. Several social media feeds are visible on her tablet. She said it's occurring. Someone turned the screen in my direction and gave a financial whistleblower website access to portions of the loan documents. It's a viral story. Overnight, Sierra's Instagram remarks became viral. Responses to her most recent beat shot were overwhelming. Living in luxury while avoiding debt must be pleasant. How do you get any sleep at all? Are you aware that your sisters support your way of life? Money scammers having the time of their lives. It buzzed on my phone. Eric, once more. What did you do? Our sponsors are leaving. I returned the type. I took no action. The truth did. There was another alert. My father sent me an email. Subject line, we must speak. I took it open. 7 p.m. meeting at the residence. Come by yourself. Genesis. Over my shoulder read it. Trap. I shut down my laptop, of course, but I'm still going. Do you want to back up? No. Now is the time to complete this. The house appears to be smaller than I had thought. In the dusk light, the shadows are longer. Sitting by himself on the porch steps, my father appeared older than his 61 years. Your mom isn't present. As I got closer, he said, I begged her to leave this to me. What should I handle? He produced a pile of documents. These were discovered in Sierra's former room. She walked away from them when they were running. Bank statements, text messages, and printouts of emails. A thorough record of their scheme to steal the money and flee. You were aware. Silently, I said, you were aware from the beginning. We considered. He massaged his face. We assumed that you wouldn't really use the clause. You never carry out the repercussions. You always make things right. No more. Once more, the collecting agency called. Now they are discussing allegations of fraud. Slaughter is a criminal offense. There are repercussions for actions. His eyes were moist as he gazed up at me. I am your daughter and she is your sister. Was that ever important? Tens of years of silent animosity weighed on the silence that hung between us. Sierra gave us a call an hour ago. At last, he announced that their visas would be canceled. Out there, Eric's business partners are backing down. They're stuck. I mean, karma isn't subtle at all. Are you unable to stop this? I sat on the steps next to him, keeping a safe distance. Do you recall my desire to attend the summer programming camp when I was 16 years old? He looked directly forward. We couldn't afford it. You claimed. However, Sierra required a new laptop for her interest of photography 2 months later. High-end model, superior slaughter. I'm not going to fix this, I replied as I got to my feet. I will never again mend anything. It buzzed on my phone. Sierra made a video call. In front of my father, I responded. Our accounts are being frozen by them. Sierra had mascara flowing and was weeping. Something regarding fraud investigations is being mentioned by Eric's partners. What's going on? The truth is coming to light. Calmly, I said. How are things going for you? This is where we're trapped. The embassy refuses to assist. Our cards have been rejected. Dad, it sounds like a brand new issue. When she saw him in the picture, she sobbed. Tell her to stop. He glanced between us, lost an eye. I have no idea how. I responded, "That's right. You don't know how to help her for once. Isn't it an interesting feeling?" Anger twisted Sierra's face. "You are a villain." Feeling envious? I hung up. My dad got up slowly. He held papers in his shaking hands. "What are you looking for from us? You helped make this mess and I want you to sit in it. I want you to experience what it's like to be abandoned. After all these years, I want you to realize what you did to me. You were adored by us. No, I was used by you. There is a distinction." Once more, my phone buzzed. Genesis. An interview is wanted by the fraud department. All set for the last nail. I turned to face my father, a shattered man who had always opted for the easiest route and who had allowed my sister and mother to drain me year after year. "I must leave," I said. "I'm meeting to discuss allegations of fraud. Please," he muttered. "We are related." The day you finally choose her over me, I stopped at my automobile, which had lost all significance. Still holding those damaging documents, I watched him in my rearview mirror as I drove away. Standing by myself in the darkening home where I had discovered that blood is meaningless when it only flows in one direction. The collection agency acted quickly. They started seizing my parents' assets within a week. From my office, I observed the launch of their holiday property listing. That's the exact property I hoped to inherit. Now priced to sell quickly. My mom arrived without warning. Flawless makeup, even though her eyes were ringed with crimson. Everything is being taken by them. I answered without raising my eyes from my screen, "Not everything. Exactly what you risk. Why are you treating us like this? Nothing is being done by me. It's the contract." Her hand smashed into my desk. "Observe me while I speak to you." I looked her in the eyes. "When I pleaded with you not to steal my college funds, you stared at me like that. That was not the same. Indeed, you mentioned that repeatedly. However, nothing was altered. It was simply another moment. Sierra was your first choice." An email from the fraud investigation team buzzed through my phone. "Eric and Sierra will be interviewed via video conference. We need you here. They are looking at possible fraud in Sierra." Over my shoulder, my mother read in a whisper, "Our little child could end up behind bars," before assisting her in organizing an international debt default that should have been considered. Across from me, she fell into the chair. "How could you have been so cold?" The finest taught me. Sierra's most recent social media post, a heartbreaking video about being abused by a toxic family, was displayed to her as I flipped my screen. She's afraid. My mother said that while she is manipulating once more, it will not succeed this time. My phone rang. Without saying hello, she said, "Genesis, turn on the news." Local business channel. I launched the live feed. Security was there to remove Eric out of a business meeting. The headline moved. "The creator of a local startup is being investigated for worldwide fraud." My mom put her hand over her lips. "God, please. Activities, repercussions." Silently, I said, "It's funny how that operates." "They're stuck," she begged. "Their visas are expired. They have frozen their accounts. For example, I had to eat ramen for 6 months while Sierra shared pictures from Paris, and my accounts were frozen after I paid my dad's medical fees." The door to the office opened. With a disappointed expression, my father entered. He asked below, "The vacation house sold, but it was enough to pay off some of the debt." "Well done." I said, "You're gaining knowledge. In just 61 years, financial responsibility was attained." The latter. My mom made another attempt. "As a family, we can still resolve this. Our family never existed." I interrupted. "We served as Sierra's support network. There is a distinction." Once more, my phone buzzed. A call from an unidentified number. "It's Eric. Please. We are in dire straits. The embassy refuses to assist. Sierra is experiencing panic episodes. Decide on a price." I showed my folks the message. "You see, he wishes to negotiate now. It's funny that when the funds run out, that's what occurs." "How will you respond?" my dad inquired. I typed a reply. "My cost. Everything you took, plus interest. Do the math." "I'll hold off. That type of money is not theirs." My mom objected. "When you stole my college funds, I didn't either. When dad needed surgery, I didn't either. I didn't either. The one time Sierra needed bail money, but I was able to do it somehow." An email from the fraud investigators asking for further proof was pinging my PC. I need to get ready for a meeting. Standing, I said, "You are free to view yourselves. Hold on." "The house," my father said. "They are discussing a lien, so I suppose you'd best get packing." My mom started crying. This time real ones, not the deceptive sobs I had heard as a child. "You did this to us, but why?" she sobbed. I approached and held open the door. "Did you do this to yourself?" I simply wrote it down. When they were gone, I took a seat again and checked my email. Sierra had apologized in a long, meandering letter. When she needed something, she would always write it down. I didn't read it before deleting it. Genesis showed up at my doorstep prepared for tomorrow's fraud interrogation. I claimed I was ready to stop this. She softly reminded me that they were your family. "No," I said, bringing up the last bit of proof 2 days before to the wedding. Pictures showed my parents assisting Sierra with packing for her departure. All they have in common is my DNA. This is not what family would have done. It was the last time my phone lighted up. Sierra texted, "I apologize. This time I mean it. Please assist us." 6 words were typed back by me. "Sorry, the $50,000 is not repaid." After that, I switched off my phone, went to the files related to the fraud investigation, and started getting ready to make my statement. The last nail would be tomorrow. The one that would put a final nail in the coffin of every familial bond that had ever held me captive to their deception in addition to their fate. This tale needed to conclude on my terms. Other than the birds and me, the beach was deserted. I read the last notification from the collection agency while I was sitting on the sand. Asset liquidation was used to settle the debt. The case is over. It buzzed on my phone. I received a news story from Genesis. A local couple was arrested at the border for trying to enter the country illegally. I grinned. Eric and Sierra had attempted to enter the nation covertly from Mexico. It had not gone smoothly. My mother another buzz. "They are being held in order to question them. Please assist." I returned the type. New phone. Who is this? Her following 3 messages were carried away before I could read them by the increasing wind. I made no effort to pick them up off the sand. An email from the fraud investigators rang on my laptop. "I appreciate your cooperation. There are charges." Excellent. I spoke to the waves in a whisper. Across my screen, a shadow appeared. My father was standing there looking dazed in his now oversized suit when I looked up. He sat down next to me in the sand and murmured, "The house sold. Next week we'll be moving into an apartment. Downsizing may be beneficial." "Mommy," he hesitated. "She's not doing well with it." And nothing. A handful of sand slipped between his fingers as he scooped it up. "I have nothing to ask for here. I'm come to tell you that you were correct." I shut off my laptop and thought about everything. You were let down by us. We let Sierra to exhaust you. His voice broke. You weren't our children. She was made possible by us. It took you a while to realize. He went on. I saw the spreadsheet. With all the money you have given us over the years, that is. Did you realize that the sum is nearly comparable to the assets that your mother and I lost? Karma is a math prodigy. He reached into his jacket and took out an envelope. It took place in Sierra's former room. It's meant for you. The day before the wedding, they went out. I took it open. There was a message written by Sierra inside. A few days later. We'll be gone by the time you read this. I appreciate you being such a dependable ATM throughout the years. Don't worry, your parents will guilt you into taking care of this as well. Sierra is always loved by them. You were never considered a sister by her. Silently, my father said, we also didn't see you as a daughter. You seemed like a solution to us. I carefully folded the message. And now? We now perceive you as someone we lost as a result of our own behavior. He brushed sand from his jeans and got to his feet. I'm not pleading for pardon. I'm only stating that what you did was the appropriate thing to do. Once more, my phone buzzed. Genesis, goddamn. Federal charges have been brought against Sierra and Eric. It was sealed by your parents' statement. I glanced up at my dad. Did you testify against them? We were honest. Simply, he said, at last. He started to walk away, then paused. This beach house might have been purchased with the sum you provided us throughout the years on the spreadsheet. I concluded by pointing to the opulent home behind us, which I had just closed this morning. His eyes became a little wider. You have to sell the vacation home you purchased indeed. at less than market value because of the pressing need to sell. I brushed the sand off my legs and got to my feet. When things come full circle, it's funny. Realizing that everything was finished, he gave one nod and turned to go. He vanished down the shore, and I saw it. I had never seen a man that little. A video call from Sierra from a correctional facility appeared on my phone. I responded to it. "They are accusing us of fraud," she cried. Both parents provided testimony. How were they able to? How could you abandon me with a debt of $50,000? That's not the same. We are related. No more. I displayed the keys to my home. Do you recall this view, the seaside mansion that you adore? I now own it. Lawfully, indefinitely. Furthermore, you will never set foot in there. You're a bitch. I blocked the number and hung up. With 2 champagne glasses in hand, Genesis emerged at the top of the beach stairs, prepared to officially open the new home. Nearly. I opened my banking application and checked my accounts. It's all in black, only in my name. No family loans, no co-signers, and no karma-related guilt. As he handed me a glass to contracts, Genesis spoke. I grinned after correcting, and to at last making my own decision. As the sun began to drop over my beautiful beach house, we clinked glasses and painted everything in shades of justice. My phone did not make a sound. Family emergencies are over. No more journeys of guilt. No more deceit. I just have a piece of property in my name, and everything is cleaned by the sound of the waves. Retaliation doesn't always work. Property deeds and court records may contain hints of it. There are moments when it seems like you're finally letting go of those who have always thought of you as a solution to their issues. And it might seem just like freedom at times.